Update. I'm exposing the woman my partner, now ex, cheated on me with. Original post. I, 34 female, had been with my boyfriend, 35 male, for 7 years when I discovered that his close female friend, 33 female, who gets him like no one else, has been sending him nudes, texts, and begging him for hookups. He has been reciprocating. What bothers me even more is that she's married, and her husband has no idea. They've stayed in hotels together multiple times, while both lied to my face, insisting that nothing was going on. Meanwhile, I've quietly collected evidence, taking screenshots of everything I found on his phone. I stupidly told my partner I would forgive him if he gave her up, but he adamantly refused. He said he loved her more than me, but still wanted to keep both of us. So, I've been quietly preparing to move on without him. I let him renew the lease in our house while I sort out my finances. And I'm planning to expose her as karma for all the lies. Thanks to my partner buying her adult toys on Amazon, I know where she lives. She stays with her husband's family, and here's the kicker. She can only remain in the country because she's married. She has even said that once she secures her visa, she plans to leave her husband and be with my ex. If I expose her to her husband and in-laws, he'll likely divorce her, and she'll be forced to leave the country for 6 months to a year. She wouldn't be able to afford a visa on her own, and her previous attempts to secure one independently have been unsuccessful. Her husband currently funds it. If she has to go back, she'd end up in a Muslim country with her parents, who would despise her if they knew what she had done, though her father is currently cheating on her mother, so it seems to run in the family. I wouldn't even consider doing this, and I might have forgiven her if she hadn't lied to my face. She cried her eyes out when I confronted her, claiming I made her feel like a whore and that she'd never betray her religion or husband. 3 days later, she was hooking up with my boyfriend in my bed. I'm not sure when to go through with it. She's going back to her home country next month on a trip her husband paid for, and I know he would likely leave her there and cancel her return flight if I told him. But if I expose her now, my ex would know it was me, and he would leave the house. I can't afford a place on my own until next year. Alternatively, I could wait until I've paid off most of my debts and can support myself, which would mean holding off for nearly a year to avoid becoming homeless. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Gather your info, seek a lawyer, and start making an exit plan for yourself. And I would tell and show her husband what she has been doing. Thank you. I feel awful for him. I go to the gym with him and is genuinely such a nice guy. At least to me. Obviously, I don't know their circumstances at home. She hasn't even got a job but goes to the cinema several times, / hotel stays without him and new clothes every week, etc. And he pays for a lot. She's taking advantage of a kind man. Tell the husband and let him leave her there. Also, he can't just leave the house he has signed for. It will ruin any chance of him renting again. Plus, he will be required by law to pay. Tell her husband. Send him the evidence and let the chips fall where they may. Oh, I didn't know that. In about 10 months, I could afford a place by myself, which is what I was planning on waiting for, but if I can do it sooner. I don't know where you live, but be careful with assuming your partner can't leave the home / be removed from the rental agreement. There are places where a renter can pay a penalty to be removed from the lease. Check your local laws and also your rental agreement. The agreement should or might have a clause that explains if / how a renter can break the agreement. I don't want you to get stuck with a house you can't afford if your partner leaves, because you assumed he legally couldn't when in fact he could. Thank you. I'm avoiding putting where I live just in case either of them comes across this. It's specific enough that I think they'd figure it out, but I couldn't make my point being any vaguer. It's why I'm considering waiting a few months until I'm better financially, as much as I'm itching to do it next week while they're on holiday. I can afford all bills with ease once I've finished paying off this awful loan I've had for a while. He genuinely thinks I'm happy partaking in an open relationship, so he has no reason to want to leave at the moment. I think the sensible option is to wait, but it means you guys will have to wait a few months for an update. Now for the first update. Last night, I bumped into her husband at the gym. Since she wasn't with him, I decided to tell him everything. He had suspected she was cheating but didn't want to believe it, and thought they could work on their marriage. Until I showed him the screenshots. I also told him about her plan to divorce him once she obtained citizenship. She asked for some time to gather any evidence he could find, like the adult toys my ex bought her to strengthen his case. He also asked if I could anonymously report the situation, because he didn't feel ready to face it himself. He wasn't angry, just incredibly sad, and I felt awful for putting him through this. But he didn't deserve to be used like that. This confrontation happened sooner than I expected, but he promised to protect me from any fallout, considering I took a risk by telling him the truth. If they get an amicable divorce, she'll have 60 days to leave the country and would need to restart the visa process to return. If she is charged with lying to gain a visa, she could be banned for 10 years. I'm not sure if cheating qualifies as lying for the visa, but I don't have proof of that yet. Second update a month later. A lot has happened in the last month. It feels like the first post was ages ago, given how stressful things have been. As kind of expected, the husband backtracked and decided he wanted to try and save their marriage. He had no idea she had 3 different escape plans lined up to run away with my ex. I did anonymously report her, but I'll never know the outcome. I assume it will come up when they start the divorce proceedings. My ex and I continued living together until about a week ago, but it was unbearable. We'd have moments of peace, then erupt into arguments over the smallest things. The final straw was when my ex started completely ignoring me after I had been driving him to and from work because his car was broken down. I even drove him to the gym, but when I got ready to go in, he told me I wasn't allowed to because she was there, and that it made her uncomfortable. When I told him I wasn't going to change my plans for her, he accused me of being a cruel and horrible person for not supporting their love, and said I deserved to be unhappy. I laughed in his face, threw him out of the car, drove home, packed all of his belongings, and dropped them off at his mother's house. And by dropped off, I mean I tossed them out of the car and called his mom to come get them before they got stolen. After that, I stewed for a bit and then drove to the other woman's house. I told her family everything, and her father-in-law was probably the angriest of them all. I showed them all the evidence and gave them copies. The husband and she tried to play it off as some couple's adult game, but the evidence made it clear that wasn't true. Even if it was, she knew about me and my relationship with him. During this, the husband discovered that she had already consulted lawyers about how to divorce him while staying in the country, so they've now begun divorce proceedings. She's set to return to her home country. She has also blocked my ex and everything because he wasn't supposed to keep her nudes or texts. He had lied to her about living with me and still talking to me. She thought that after I found out about the cheating, he had moved out and cut contact. On the few occasions she saw us together at the gym, he had explained it away as a coincidence. My ex is now blocked on everything and living with his mom. I returned his car to the dealership and accepted a payment plan for breaking the lease early. I'm waiting to hear back from a cute 1-bedroom apartment 10 minutes from where I currently live. It's £400 cheaper with a garden for my dogs. I'll lose my deposit and owe for some damages it cost to the house, but I don't care anymore. I won't get to see the rest of the fallout, but I've seen enough to carry on with my life, knowing I hurt them as much as they hurt me. I'm petty, but it's made me feel better. This account will be pretty much inactive from now on as I focus on moving forward and rebuilding my confidence. Thank you everyone for your support and advice. I was truly alone, and it was comforting to know that strangers from all over the world could band together in our shared disdain for cheaters. In the end, the idiot wanted to play with fire and he lost everything. That he did. She probably didn't deserve as much karma as she got, but it is what it is. His own family couldn't care less even after knowing me for all that time. Same for his friends. They supported him. You're a queen. Your ex is genuinely awful. Which dumpster did you pick him up from? Be careful not to collect future partners from dumpsters moving forward. As for her, good riddance. I don't understand people who think the betrayed spouse shouldn't confront the affair partner. Yes, the spouse is the biggest culprit and should get the biggest ass kicking. But if the affair partner is perfectly aware of the entire situation, then screw him. They're not innocent at all. Only if affair partner is truly unaware, then they shouldn't be targeted because they're also a victim. And in this situation, affair partner is your friend and the basis of friendship is loyalty and respect, to which she's shown you neither. So, go off, queen. Thank you, and God knows, you think you know someone. I even said to him, if he'd broken up with me and then got with her, I never would have cared. I would have been hurt but not spiteful over it. And that's what I said, but he did try to argue, before I blocked him, that she didn't deserve any of this, and that she's the innocent party. Last I checked, me and her husband were the only innocent parties, yet we were expected to wave them off into the sunset together? Next story. That's not what you're supposed to do in an open relationship. My ex Gina and I had been dating for about 5 years. She told me she loved me but wanted to open our relationship and experience more of life. I didn't want that at all, and I made it clear that it wasn't my thing. But she kept pushing, and I eventually agreed because I didn't want to lose her. I'm not an extroverted person, and I wasn't really interested in seeing anyone else. So I just kept living my life the same way. Then about 6 months ago, I met Helen through my job. She was really interesting, and we clicked right away. We had similar hobbies and tastes in pop culture, so we started hanging out as friends. Helen knew about my situation with Gina, so we kept it friendly until things got more complicated. One day, a guy asked Helen out, and she turned him down. Afterward, she called me and said that I was the closest thing to a perfect boyfriend for her, even though I had a girlfriend. She admitted she was too into me and felt like accepting the date would have been like cheating on me. It wasn't sexual, but it made me think about my feelings. I asked Helen if she thought we would make a good couple. She said yes, absolutely, but she wasn't going to be responsible for me leaving Gina. I told her to give me a month to figure things out. That night, I broke up with Gina, packed up my things, and moved out since it was her lease. I gave her money to cover my share of the bills until February. After the breakup, I kept hanging out with Helen as friends, and eventually I asked her on a real date. She agreed, but made it clear that she was a one-man woman and would never want an open relationship. That was exactly what I wanted too. When Gina found out I had basically left her to be with someone else, she was furious. She accused me of developing feelings for Helen while we were still together, and said that wasn't how an open relationship was supposed to work. She was also upset because she couldn't afford the apartment on her own. I told Gina that I never wanted an open relationship in the first place, but she had insisted on it. I don't think I did anything wrong by moving on with someone who wanted the same things I did. You meeting Helen had nothing to do with your open relationship. You weren't happy with Gina, so you monkey branched to Helen. So I guess the question is whether monkey branching makes you the a-hole. I would not have hung out alone with a woman if I was in a monogamous relationship. I would find it disrespectful. You're not supposed to find a new girlfriend in an open relationship. Hun, you're not supposed to force an open relationship on someone who doesn't want it. Karma. She played stupid games. Got to win a stupid prize. If I were Opie, the fact that she did not want to be in a committed relationship with Opie, then she broke off their relationship, not him, no matter what she says. Last story. Am I the a-hole for divorcing my husband after catching him in bed with our married neighbor and exposing her to her husband? This is honestly such a mess, and I'm not sure if I handled it the right way, but here it goes. I, 34 female, have been married to my husband, 36 male, for 7 years. We have an 8-year-old autistic son, and life has already been pretty stressful for both of us. I thought we were handling it together like we were in this as a team, until a few weeks ago when everything fell apart. We live in a small neighborhood where everyone's pretty friendly, and I got along well with our next-door neighbors, Emily, 32 female, and her husband, Dave, 35 male. Emily and I weren't super close, but we chatted often. Our kids played together sometimes, and our husbands would occasionally hang out too. At first I thought it was nice that my husband and Emily seemed to get along, just neighbors being friendly. But then things started to feel off. My husband became more secretive, especially with his phone, and he seemed to bump into Emily whenever I wasn't around. He'd go out for random walks or suddenly needed to run errands right after dinner. I noticed these little things, but I didn't want to seem paranoid. I mean, we'd been through so much together. I didn't think he would do something like that to me. Then one day, everything came crashing down. I had to come home early from work unexpectedly because our son's school had a half day that I forgot about. I walked in, and there in our bedroom, I found my husband and Emily together. In our bed. I felt like the world stopped. They both panicked when they saw me. My husband scrabbling for his clothes and Emily crying, saying it was a mistake and that she was so sorry. I couldn't even process it. I just walked out, shaking, and went to pick up my son from school. Later that night, I confronted my husband, and he admitted to having an affair with her for the past few months. He begged me to forgive him, said it was a stupid impulsive thing, and swore he loved me and didn't want to lose our family. I was heartbroken and didn't know what to do, but I knew I couldn't stay with someone who would betray me like that. Then there was Emily's husband, Dave. I knew him well enough to know he had no idea what was going on. I couldn't just stay silent and let him be blindsided like I was. So the next day, I went over to their house while Emily was out and told Dave everything. I even showed him proof, texts, pictures, everything I had. He was devastated, obviously, but he thanked me for being honest. And that's when the real drama began. Both my husband and Emily were furious when they found out I told Dave. My husband said I should have kept it between us and worked things out for the sake of our son. Emily called me all kinds of names, saying I had no right to tell her husband and that I ruined her life. She even claimed it wasn't serious, and then I blew everything out of proportion. Now Dave is considering divorcing her, and I've already filed for divorce myself. I'm getting a lot of flack from mutual friends who say I went too far by telling Dave and that I should have tried to keep things private to avoid tearing apart two families. I feel like I did what I had to do, but now I'm questioning myself. Am I the a-hole for divorcing my husband and telling Emily's husband about the affair? Should I have kept quiet and handled it differently? Honestly, her friends need to mind their own damn business and stay out of hers. She's more than welcome and has every right to divorce her cheating ex. So true, they're not real friends. Real friends would support and love her. My advice? Get new friends. Also, show them this post to show them how crappy they are. I love it when cheaters start talking about rights. I'm not even a huge believer in monogamy, despite personally being married for 20 plus years. But a promise is a promise, and betrayal is betrayal. How dare you respond to my complete betrayal of you in a way that reflects poorly on me? Yeah, okay.